Well, Donald Trump, Kelly, trying to change the conversation to the fight against terrorism after a week of campaign trouble, telling a rally of supporters in Florida Hillary Clinton has absolutely no plan to take down ISIS. Listen.
They are hoping and praying that Hillary Clinton becomes president of the United States, because they'll take over not only that part of the world, they'll take over this country, they'll take over this part of the world, believe me. They are hoping. They are hoping. And by the way, you know, she likes to say they want me. I will be their worst nightmare. I'm going to be their worst nightmare. Oh.
Joining us now, Mark Dubowitz, Executive Director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you very much, Mark, for talking to us. All right, let's talk about Trump's strategy. He says that Hillary Clinton doesn't have one. Some have accused Trump of his comments being successfully used to recruit ISIS and other jihadists. I'd have to say that's a ridiculous stretch. I mean, he is out there basically critiquing, and he's critical of America's strategy in fighting ISIS. He's not encouraging the terrorist group. But what is Trump's plan to defeat ISIS, since he says Hillary doesn't have one?
Well, Julie, we learned from the last debate that Donald Trump believes that we should be aligning ourselves with Syria, Iran, and Russia against ISIS. And that's a problem, of course, because Syria and Iran and Russia are not actually fighting ISIS. They're fighting the Syrian opposition. And if anything, they're a recruitment gift for ISIS as they continue to radicalize and slaughter the Sunnis of Syria. So Mike Pence obviously had a very different perspective on that, and I think it'll be interesting in the upcoming debate to see and hear Donald Trump perhaps clarifying that position.
Okay, so when you say that, you know, he is arguing that we should align ourselves with Assad, Iran, and Russia against ISIS, I guess he is now going to have to dial that back a bit on his third debate and come out with a clearer strategy. And what will that be? I mean, he has come out against Russia, saying that Russia needs to get involved and that he can have communication with them, he can talk with them, and he can work with Russia. How big of Russia, I guess, will be part of his plan? And is that something that he'll be bringing up? Because he does bring Russia up and how he can get involved with Vladimir Putin and actually make a difference, a positive difference with that country.
You know, Vladimir Putin is the sort of major power player now in Middle East politics, and I think what he's done over the past 8 years, unfortunately, is that he has humiliated the United States. He's taken advantage of President Obama's reticence in getting involved in Syria and getting involved in Iraq, in pushing back against Iran and the jihadists. And so Donald Trump, I hope, in the next debate is going to clarify that we really need to be pushing back against Putin and Iran and Assad if we're going to bring any kind of stability to the Middle East. But I think aligning ourselves with the Islamic Republic of Iran is probably not the best strategy for Middle East stability.
I've spoken with many experts who say the Assad regime must be taken down. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I mean, the Assad regime has created a Chernobyl of jihadism in the Middle East. I mean, you've got 500,000 people dead. You've got millions of refugees flooding into Europe. And we have to remember, I mean, this represents an existential threat to the survival of Europe, to the survival of the European Union. And the foreign fighters that are flooding into Europe, they represent a threat to U.S. national security, because the security services of Europe are the first line of defense against one of these foreign fighters jumping on a transatlantic flight and showing up in New York or Washington.
How does Trump's will to ban Muslims from entering the United States affect his war on terror?
It's certainly being used as propaganda by al-Qaeda and by ISIS and al-Shabaab. It also complicates our strategy, because we certainly need to work very closely with the Jordanians, with the Emiratis, and with other moderate Muslim countries in order to defeat ISIS and defeat these jihadist groups. So we certainly, I think that strategy will go way too far, and in doing so will alienate, you know, hundreds of millions of Muslims in these key Muslim countries that we need to work with, many of whom are more threatened by ISIS and by the jihadists than even we are.
Mark Dubowitz, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Julie.
Kelly.